even graces its logo, he also doesn't think it's his place or the studio's place to say. On a recent trip to Team Asobi's studio in Japan, we got an up-close look at how Astro came to be and the design philosophy that drives the studio's playful, polished little automaton. At first, Team Asobi's work wasn't meant to be seen directly by consumers. It was an internal R&D studio under the umbrella of Sony's Japan studio, composed mostly of ex-developers and devoted to developing tools and techniques for other Sony studios. There were no grand ambitions to break into game development or make a cute mascot, but in hindsight, Dusay said the turn towards public development was probably inevitable.
I asked, to put some of our tech demos, at the time it was PlayStation 4, into the console, and that's when we had to kind of go back into making games. But I think, honestly, over time, probably we would have felt the same way. I think staying in R&D and R&D only, because we were all like ex-game developers, we had, there were people who came from projects such as, Gravity Rush at the time, or in my case I was working on other games, and I think sooner or later we would have wanted to go back into making full-on games, I'd imagine. Yeah. So that was a request, but it's a good one, I think.
The request came in 2012 to help develop mini-games for the Playroom, a showcase for the PlayStation 4's augmented reality technology using the PlayStation camera released in 2013. It was composed of only a few mini-games, but one of them was a star in the making. AR bots let you fling little robots into your living room, where they would roam around and interact with each other or with objects you draw and fling into the screen. But they bear an unmistakable resemblance to Astro. Since they were meant to be squat little characters sitting on your living room floor, the team designed them to have certain baby-like qualities. They wanted you to feel protective of the little bots. Unless you're Ice-T. Still, all the pieces were there. Adorable, playful little robots who live inside of your PlayStation controller. Japan Studio released a few other add-ons for the Playroom with similar visual styles, like Toymaker and Ninja Bots. It had all the makings of a franchise, but it would be years before it received another game, and a more identifiable name. When Sony released the Playroom VR in 2016, the robot character was front and center, complete with a rebranding as Astro. Japan Studio wanted the name to be short, snappy, and easy to pronounce in any language. Plus, Dusay joked that they imagined picking an A name because it might put them at the top of the alphabetical listings. The VR game had one short platforming minigame called Robots Rescue, which was particularly well received as a standout of the package. That expanded into Astro Bot Rescue Mission in 2018, a full-fledged platforming game exclusive to PlayStation VR. It received glowing reviews, which paved the way for Astro's Playroom as a pack-in for the PlayStation 5 in 2020, which was also well received. Again and again, Japan Studio had been given the task of showcasing PlayStation tech, and it had consistently risen to the occasion. From an R&D support studio to a front-facing developer, it had come into its own, and the little AR robot, now firmly renamed Astro, had grown along with it. It was only a matter of time before the studio got a rebranding of its own. In 2021, Sony announced that the broader Japan studio would be winding down, and Astro's creators, Team Asobi, would become its own studio. Dusay announced at the time that the studio would be staffing up, and Sony unveiled a new logo that put Astro front and center. It was finally time to pitch a full-fledged Astro game. To sell the idea, the team focused on a few key pillars, some with buzzy portmanteau nicknames, and mapped them onto a spectrum of ages and experience levels that each would appeal to. Techno Magic was the name given to Asobi's unique ability to wring delightful surprises out of PlayStation's technology, and the studio imagined it would carry widespread appeal. And while Astro's Playroom was a veritable museum of PlayStation history, this new game would be a PlayStation Fiesta of references to PlayStation's history. That captures not just the story and spirit of the game, but this time Astro would go much deeper into its references to PlayStation history by introducing dozens of VIP characters, recognizable heroes from the past given a robot makeover, some with their own unique crafted stages to emulate their respective famous games. These robots would express their own sometimes softened personas through their visual style and animations, like the angry cute Kratos robot. Also, for the first time, the cameos include third-party characters from outside of Sony studios. Art director Sebastian Brockner said Team Asobi found third-party developers were very amenable to the idea.
It is a huge celebration of all PlayStation history for the last 30 years. So hence a lot of our partners actually were really keen when we approached them. Yeah, please, this sounds great. We want to be part of this. So it was an unbelievable honor to hear this sort of response from our partners, and we took incredible care of trying to fully and respectfully recreate whatever the essence of these games is and recapture that in the style of our game.
Making a full-fledged platformer that maintains the pace of surprises from Astro's Playroom was a Herculean task, but Team Asobi has developed a workflow to help generate and test new ideas at a rapid pace. It all starts with post-it notes. At idea sessions, the meeting's leader, sometimes but not necessarily Ducey, will introduce a design challenge or idea they need to solve. Everyone in attendance sketches out a handful of ideas on post-it notes, which often resemble cartoon storyboards to express the idea behind an attack pattern or a character animation. These get hung on the wall, combined, and culled down. The team emphasized that everyone is included in these sessions, programmers and game designers. Once an idea has been settled, one designer and programmer are given the tasks to work collaboratively for about 2 weeks to prototype it. Then the idea gets tested and refined through group playtest sessions. Multiply this process by the significantly expanded studio, and Team Asobi was able to generate a steady stream of ideas for stages, bosses, and surprises. The rapid prototyping is also aided through a live link tool that allows designers to make changes to stage layouts that are reflected in a playable state instantaneously. It's easy to see how a designer and programmer working collaboratively could test and iterate quickly, so that their design is as polished as it can be before presenting it to the broader team for playtesting. The rapid prototyping means that Ducey, as well as other senior staff, have to be very careful about filtering ideas and driving forward towards the strongest material. But he also stressed the importance of trusting his team to run with an idea and see what sticks.
Like a few of us that think, okay, this idea is really, it's not gonna work. However, the person doing the implementation really believes in it, thinking, no, that's gonna work. And we have a quick conversation, but then we have to be able to accept that if the person doing the execution of it is going to be programming that, has the vision for how it's going to be good, then we have to try it, right? You have to give a lot of trust that goes into each individual, and where their instinct lies, we have to listen very much. And there's a lot of ideas in the game that, if you'd asked me on paper, is it going to be a good idea? My gut feeling as kind of maybe I'll be on the safe side, I would have said, nah, it's probably going to fail. But then the person who did it, carried the vision and saw things that I didn't see. And so it has to be, and that's teamwork, I suppose, like not one person is holding the key to every situation, right?
Can you
With Astro Bot, Team Asobi's most iconic creation is finally coming into its own with a big original game. But if he's destined to become a long-term PlayStation mascot, Ducey says it's up to the fans, not Asobi or even Sony.
I don't feel like it's for us to decide. I think with a lot of mascots, it's like over time, through several iterations, and there were qualitative iterations, they grew onto people, and people, adopted them and could associate, the brand to these characters, and then they became mascots. But that was decided by the public, not by the design, right?
He says it's easy to just design a character and make it represent a brand for 5 years, as many advertising mascots do. But when it comes to classic iconic mascots like Mickey Mouse, it was just designed to be good and endearing. And then the character grew into the role.
I think it's we have to be humble about it, So of course, it would be amazing if one day that can be the case. But for the time being, I think we have to solidify the base. We have to continue making great games. And then, if organically that happens, I think he'd be great. But
So is Astro a Sony mascot? Like so much else we've seen from Team Asobi, it's about buckling down and doing the work and letting the rest follow. This was just a chunk of Steve Watt's awesome feature on Astro Bot. I highly suggest you read the full article, and I will leave that in the description below. Thanks for watching.
PlayStation 5 Pro is official, and we have a ton of new details on this mid-gen refresh of the PS5. Here's everything you need to know about the console. During Sony's presentation, hosted by PS5 Pro architect Mark Cerny, it was mentioned that the new console would target what internally PlayStation refers to as the Big Three. Up first is a larger graphics processing unit. The PS5 Pro's GPU has 67% more compute units than the standard PS5 and 28% faster memory. According to Sony, this enables up to 45% faster rendering. The second of the big three is ray tracing improvements. The details on this are a little murky, but according to Sony, this allows rays to be cast at double and at times triple the speeds of the base PS5. So basically, better ray tracing performance. The final element is PSSR, or PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution. This is an AI-driven upscaling akin to NVIDIA's DLSS or AMD's FSR. It uses a machine learning-based technology to improve image clarity. Essentially, between the big three improvements, PS5 Pro reportedly aims to blur the lines between the fidelity and performance modes in games. Fidelity mode will provide more frames than the base PS5, and performance mode will have improved graphics over games running in that mode on the standard console. Via PlayStation's blog post on the PS5 Pro, the system has a game boost, which can apply to more than 8,500 backward-compatible PS4 games and PS5 games that don't receive specific updates to take advantage of the new hardware. The PS5 Pro is as tall as the original PS5 and about as wide as the newer, slimmer base console, featuring additional venting slits on the side. PS5 Pro doubles the internal storage of the console to 2 TB, which will be important since the PS5 Pro does not come with a disk drive. The currently available attachable disk drive that can be added to and removed from the slim PS5 will work with the PS5 Pro for those with physical copies of game. However, it seems that the slim PS5's interchangeable covers might not fit the new console, as PlayStation states that PS5 Pro owners can, quote, swap out console covers when they become available. For those that have routers that support the latest standard of Wi-Fi 7, PS5 Pro will also support that new standard as well, which should bring improved wireless download speeds for those that pick up the new hardware. Myriad games were shown off that take advantage of PS5 Pro's new specs during PlayStation's presentation. In addition, PlayStation listed numerous titles in its blog post on the new console that will also have Pro updates, although this is apparently not every game. The list is as follows: Alan Wake 2, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Demon's Souls, Dragon's Dogma 2, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Gran Turismo 7, Hogwarts Legacy, Horizon Forbidden West, Marvel's Spider-Man 2, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, The Crew Motorfest, The First Descendant, and The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. The PlayStation 5 Pro will cost a whopping $700 United States dollars, which is $250 more than the digital-only PS5, albeit with twice the storage. The device will be available on November 7th, 2024, with pre-orders starting on September 26th. And that's everything to know about the PS5 Pro. Will you be picking up Sony's mid-generation refresh? Let us know in the comments, and for more on the PlayStation 5 Pro, stay right here on GameSpot.
Sony owns a fair few iconic franchises, many dating right back to the original PlayStation. But while we're pretty familiar with the likes of ongoing series such as God of War, Horizon and Gran Turismo, there are plenty of PlayStation franchises that haven't seen the light of day in a long time. So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the status of PlayStation's many IPs, and checking in on when we last heard from them. I'll be going through the list in alphabetical order, all the way from Ape Escape to Vib Ribbon. So let's get started. We start with Ape Escape, the iconic platforming series that started life way back in 1999 on the PlayStation. Believe it or not, it's actually one of Sony's most prolific series, with over 13 titles across the franchise, although many of those are party games and spin-offs that utilised various Sony peripherals like the iToy and PlayStation Move. While the character of Spike appeared in Sony's Smash Bros. Rip-off PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, the last time we saw a mainline entry into the Ape Escape franchise was all the way back in 2005, although we did get an RPG spin-off title for the PSP in 2008 called Ape Quest. While I'd say it's pretty unlikely we'll be getting a new Ape Escape anytime soon, you can at least play Ape Escapes 1, 2 and On the Loose on your PS5 right now. Here's hoping Sony adds Ape Escape 3 to that list in lieu of a new game. Next up we have the tactical RPG series Ark the Lad, which started out life as a trilogy of games for the original PlayStation. While the franchise was huge in Japan back in its day, it didn't get a release in the West until the release of an Ark the Lad collection, which comprised the whole trilogy and was released back in 2002. While there was a brace of PS2 games, Twilight of the Spirits and End of Darkness in the mid-noughties, the only other Ark the Lad game we've had since has been the mobile game Ark the Lad R, which launched in 2018 and was shut down in 2021. So in short, the future for this dormant RPG franchise is looking a little precarious. At least you can still play Twilight of the Spirits on your PS5 though.
The adorable little Astro Bot is next up on our list and is one of the few Sony franchises that we categorically know we'll see more of, all due to the announcement of a new game at the recent State of Play showcase. Building on the success of 2020's Astro's Playroom, which was bundled with every PS5, the new game, simply titled Astro Bot, looks like much more of the same, and that is music to my ears as the last title was an enormously fun platformer. Astro's Playroom was such a critical success for Sony that it led to the crew behind the series, Team Asobi, becoming a standalone studio outside of their previous status as an internal team within Japan studio. More power to them and their tiny little Astrobot, I say.
Bloodborne, one of the firm fan favourites that's on Sony's rosters. The 2015 game was a huge success for Sony, offering up a werewolf hunting twist on From Software's classic Souls-like template. It struck such a chord that fans have been clamouring for a sequel, prequel, remake, remaster, anything from Sony ever since, but to absolutely no avail. Whether we will ever see a follow-up to this stone-cold classic is yet to be seen, but all I'm saying is that next year, 2025, marks the 10th anniversary of the game. Come on Sony, pull your finger out. On top of Bloodborne, there's also Demon's Souls, which falls under Sony's remit as well. While the original was published by Atlus and Bandai Namco outside of Japan, the PS5 remake was very much a Sony affair. Whether we'll ever see a direct follow-up to Demon's Souls, or even its predecessor Kingsfield, is a big question mark though, especially when From Software are a little busy with something called Elden Ring. One of Sony's recent one-off titles, 2019's Days Gone, appears to be staying as just that, a solo affair. While the game saw a mixed critical reception at release, it sold well and has had a steady cult appeal since, leading to speculation that there could possibly be a sequel. But as a result of the lengthy development period, Sony allegedly turned down the chance to greenlight a sequel, and it appears that the developers behind the game, Bend Studio, have supposedly moved on to a different IP that utilises the open-world mechanics that they created with Days Gone. Next up we have Dreams, the incredibly ambitious game creator sim from Media Molecule, the team behind Little Big Planet. Dreams was officially announced by Sony back at E3 2015, but didn't launch until 2020 after being released via an early access program that was a first for Sony. Media Molecule used Dreams as a platform to release several in-house titles over the years, including the charming little puzzle game Tren, which came out just last summer. While you can still buy the game for your PS5, Media Molecule have now ended support for Dreams as of September 2023, which also effectively cancelled the planned online multiplayer mode too. And sadly, Media Molecule suffered as a part of the Sony layoffs in 2023, so what's next for the highly creative studio is a bit uncertain. Everybody's Golf, aka Hot Shots Golf in the US, is a sports series that dates all the way back to 1997 and is one of Sony's evergreen franchises. With 12 games across the series, and Everybody's Golf title has appeared on every major Sony console bar the PS5, with the latest release being 2019's Everybody's Golf. Where you can play the original 2 games as well as 2017's Everybody's Golf on your PS5 right now, surely it's just a matter of time until we see another installment in this long-running series. One of Sony's more esoteric franchises, Fat Princess is just a bit of an odd one. Since the release of the first game in 2009, there have been 2 games since, both releasing in 2015, and each one has been different from the last. While the original game was more of a real-time strategy game, its sequel Fat Princess Adventures was a dungeon crawler, and Fat Princess Piece of Cake was a puzzle game for mobiles and the PS Vita. So in short, who the hell knows what's next for this eclectic franchise? Ghost of Tsushima is next on our list, and while the series is very much in its infancy with only one main title to date, its success might pave the way for future titles. Since the game's release in 2020, we've had a PC release and a Director's Cut edition for PS5, but beyond that we haven't had any concrete news on a sequel. There have been indications that the developer behind the game, Sucker Punch, are gearing up to make a sequel that could eventually see a release on PS5, but as I said, nothing solid right now. Sony have also announced the development of a film adaptation to potentially be directed by Chad Stahelski, the man behind all 4 John Wick films, so they clearly have high hopes for the game becoming a larger franchise. Now onto one of Sony's current big hitters, God of War. While the franchise dates back nearly 20 years to the original game's release on the PS2 in 2005, it has had a massive revival in the last 6 years with Kratos' Norse-set adventures. The latest game in the series, Ragnarok, launched in late 2022 and has had a DLC expansion in the form of Valhalla since, so the franchise is in very good health. With that in mind, it's only a matter of time until we can expect to hear about what's next for one of Sony's flagship franchises. Next up is another PlayStation mainstay, the legendary racing franchise Gran Turismo. Since the original game's release back in 1997, the series has had 8 mainline games to date, with the latest, Gran Turismo 7, releasing in early 2022 for the PS4 and PS5 in time for the franchise's 25th anniversary. While it's a pretty safe bet to expect another game in the coming years, we might be waiting until the end of the PS5's life cycle or perhaps even the launch of the PS6 until we see another entry for Sony's flagship racer. In the meantime, you can always check out the Gran Turismo movie, which was released in 2023 and is broadly alright from what I've heard. The outlook is not as bright for our next series, Gravity Rush. With only 2 games to the franchise since the original game's release for the PS Vita in 2012, it's more of an outside chance that we'll see another entry anytime soon. Sadly, this is compounded by the fact that the dev team behind the games, aptly titled Team Gravity, was shut down back in 2020, a few years after the release of Gravity Rush 2. Both games are still very much playable on PS5 though, the original via its console remaster. Right, now on to one of the most successful franchises in Sony's recent history, Helldivers, which aside from the whole PSN account linking fiasco, is in incredibly rude health. It's only been a few short months since the launch of Helldivers 2, and the game has already sold more copies than the population of the developer's home country of Sweden. Couple that with a long tail of content drops, including regular war bonds and an evolving game world and map, and it looks like we'll be enforcing managed democracy for a long time to come. Oh, and you can also play the original twin-stick shooter game on your PS5 as well, which is well worth your time. The Horizon franchise is another of Sony's recent big hitters, with over 30 million game sales since the release of Horizon Zero Dawn back in 2017. Since then, we've had a DLC story expansion called The Frozen Wilds, which was released in late 2017, a full-fat sequel entitled Forbidden West that launched in early 2022, a PSVR2 game called Call of the Mountain that came out in early 2023, and finally, a DLC story expansion for Forbidden West called Burning Shores, which also launched in 2023. So in short, that's a lot of Horizon in a short space of time, and there is a lot more on the way. Aside from PC releases for both main games, the developers behind the franchise have confirmed that they are working on both an online co-op game set within the Horizon universe, as well as a third game in the series. In stark contrast to Horizon, we haven't seen an infamous game for the best part of 10 years, and that was with the release of the infamous Second Son expansion First Light back in 2014. Since the original game's launch in 2009 for the PS3, there have been 3 main games and a handful of DLC expansions, but we've heard nary a peep from the franchise since 2014, which does not bode well for any future installments. That's largely down to the fact that the studio behind the infamous franchise then went on to make Ghost of Tsushima, which itself launched in 2020 for the PS4 and later on the PS5. With the huge success of Ghost of Tsushima, it's unlikely that Sucker Punch will return to Infamous. But that's not to say that another studio might not pick up the baton, but at this point the franchise has been dormant for a very long time. Next up is Invisimals, the augmented reality franchise that is way bigger than it has any right to be. The series comprises 5 main games, most of which are AR games for either the PSP or PS Vita, with the exception of The Lost Kingdom for the PS3. On top of all that, there has been a range of toys, trading cards, and even an animated series that aired back in 2013. With that all said though, we haven't seen the little critters since 2016, so it's likely that this series might just be staying caged in the past. Now here's a real blast from the past, Naughty Dog's classic action platformer Jak and Daxter. While there hasn't been a new Jak game since 2009's Jak and Daxter The Lost Frontier, which wasn't even made by Naughty Dog, we've had 2 compilations set since then. First 2012's HD collection for the PS3, and then the Jak and Daxter bundle that was released in 2017. What the people really want though is a new Jak and Daxter sequel, and the likelihood of that happening is sadly pretty slim. But it's not completely out of the question. Naughty Dog themselves have explored the possibility of a new game in the series, with art for a Jak 4 even existing in the Art of Naughty Dog book. So, who knows? Delving even further back into Sony's library, you will find the Jet Moto franchise, which has not seen the light of day for a whopping 25 years. The futuristic racer series comprises a trilogy of games that all launched for the PS1 between 1996 and 1999, but 2 subsequent entries into the franchise have both been cancelled mid-development. The first, Jet Moto 2124, would have come out hot on the heels of Jet Moto 3, while the second, Jet Moto Solar, was rumoured to be in development for the PS2. With both of these games not seeing the light of day, this franchise has all but stalled. Now on to Killzone, one of Sony's first-person shooter franchises from the heyday of the PS2 and PS3 era. Between 2004 and 2013, the series saw 6 entries, with a trilogy of console games, a pair of portable adventures, and Shadowfall for the PS4, which was the last time we saw anything to do with the franchise. That was over a decade ago. Much like Infamous, Killzone was once one of Sony's flagship franchises, which has now kind of fallen out of favour. That's in part due to the fact that the developers behind the shooter series, Guerrilla Games, then went on to be the developer and custodian of the Horizon franchise, which has naturally pushed Killzone way down the pecking order. But there is still interest in the franchise to this day. Just look at the comments section on any of our Firearms Expert Reacts videos to see that, so there might still be hope for a Killzone resurgence one day. Next up we have Knack, which I'm not gonna lie, when I started making this video I completely forgot about it. Somewhat bewilderingly, there have been 2 Knack games, with the first releasing as a launch title for the PS4 and a sequel following that up 4 years later. While neither were exactly critical darlings, the second game in particular sold quite poorly, so the chances of a Knack 3 are pretty slim. Next up we have The Last of Us, the most recent of Naughty Dog's franchises. While there are technically more remakes and remasters of The Last of Us than there are actual numbered entries in the series, it is another of Sony's crown jewels when it comes to their recent IPs, a status that has been further cemented by the critically acclaimed TV adaptation. While Naughty Dog have now confirmed that they have stopped development of an online multiplayer game set within the world, they have stated that they have more than one ambitious single-player game in the works, and there's a good chance that one of those could be The Last of Us Part 3. Either way, with a second season of the TV show around the corner, there's definitely an appetite for more from the franchise. Little Big Planet, the highly creative and ambitious platforming series that introduced us to the adorable little Sackboy. Since the release of the original game for the PS3 back in 2008, there have been Little Big Planet games for every major PlayStation console. And PlayStation Move. While we haven't had a numbered entry in the series since 2014's Little Big Planet 3, there have been plenty of Sackboy related spin-offs, the most recent being the Sumo Digital developed Sackboy A Big Adventure in 2020. The original developers of the franchise, Media Molecule, have long since moved on to Dreams, which itself has now rounded down, but plenty of other devs have worked across the LBP or Sackboy IPs, so there is a pretty strong chance we'll see more of the franchise in some capacity in the future. Loco Roco, the platforming game with a title that just rolls off the tongue. Since the original was released for the PSP back in 2006, we've had 2 further entries into the series, with the latest Loco Roco Midnight Carnival launching in 2009. While it's been a good 15 years since then, you can play all 3 games in the series on your PS5 via remasters, which are handily keeping the franchise relevant. While it would definitely be coming out of left field, there's still a chance that we might see a new Loco Roco at some point in the future. Medieval is literal proof that you can bring a long-dead series back to life, and that thought gives a glimmer of hope to many dormant Sony franchises on this list. You see, while the original 2 games launched for the PS1 back in 1998 and 2000 respectively, after the portable spin-off Resurrection, the franchise was flatlining for the best part of 15 years. That is until it was brought back from the dead, I'm really stretching these puns out now, for 2019's all-singing, all-dancing Medieval remake. While the reception to the remake was rather mixed, it just goes to show that Sony is still keeping tabs on some of those old franchises. Next up, we've got the off-road racing series MotorStorm, which criminally hasn't had a new game since the 2012 release of MotorStorm RC. To make matters worse, Sony shut down the team behind the franchise, Evolution Studios, way back in 2016, although they did hold on to the IP for the franchise. Fortunately, a good chunk of the staff who worked at Evolution were taken on by Codemasters, but as for the MotorStorm series itself, it's pretty much in limbo right now. A quick word here on Evolution's other racing game Drive Club, which was released as a bit of a messy PS4 launch title before being extensively updated right up until Evolution Studios' closure. Sadly, it will likely now remain a rare barn find for budding racing game enthusiasts. Parappa the Rapper, one of the PS1's chief mascots, has had an enduring pop culture legacy over the years, but not a huge amount of games to his name. The original game launched all the way back in 1996, and was followed up by the spin-off Jamalami in 1999 before a fully fledged sequel for the PS2 in 2001. Since then, we've seen a remake of the original game, later revealed to be a remake of the PSP port with high-res textures, which launched around the game's 20th anniversary. While you can play both of the original games on PS5 right now, Parappa's music career definitely needs a comeback. Parappa the Rapper Drill Edition, anyone? From one rhythm game to another now, as next up is the Patapon series. The original trilogy all released for the PSP between 2007 and 2011, and the first two games eventually got ported to the PS4 in 2017. But other than that, there has been little love from Sony for this quirky little franchise, which has led to a few non-Sony sanctioned spiritual successors taking the reins. The most recent of which is a Kickstarter for a game called Ratatan, which launched its campaign in summer 2023. As for what Sony has planned, it's anyone's guess. Next up, we've got one of the longest running PlayStation franchises, Ratchet & Clank. With the first game releasing way back in 2002 and the most recent launching in 2021, this prolific platforming series has been around for some time. With 17 games today, it's undeniably one of Sony's core IPs, despite only 2 of those titles releasing in the last decade. As I said, the latest game, Rift Apart, launched in 2021 for the PS5 and even saw a PC release in 2023, which indicates the series is pretty high up the pecking order within Sony's roster. It helps matters that Sony now fully owns the core studio behind Ratchet's development, Insomniac Games. Speaking of which, yep, another Insomniac franchise is Resistance, a franchise that last saw the light of day in 2012 with the PS Vita release of Burning Skies. Before that though, there was a critically acclaimed trilogy of shooters for the PS3 that launched in 2006, 2008 and 2011 respectively, as well as a PSP spin-off called Retribution. The franchise had some interesting ideas and a whole arsenal of futuristic weaponry, much like Ratchet & Clank, but chances of a Resistance 4 are pretty slim. Insomniac themselves have said that a new game in the franchise is a long shot, with neither the developers or Sony particularly interested in exploring the series further, which is a shame if you ask me. What's worse is that, much like the Killzone trilogy, the original PS3 games are locked to that console, so you can't even play them on your PS5. Returnal, another recent Sony exclusive, is very much in its infancy and could still be just a one-off. But since its release in 2021, the game has had a solid tale of additional content that's further bolstered the game. The game comes from the Finnish developers Housemarque, who have made a fair few other PlayStation exclusive shooters that could also see future releases, including Alienation, Super Stardust and its spiritual successor Resogun. In the wake of Returnal's success, Housemarque officially became a PlayStation studio in 2021, so there's every chance that we might see a Returnal 2 or Returnal, or one of their other shooters in the near future.
One of Sony's most beloved development studios, Team Ico, who are a part of Japan's studio and responsible for classic games Ico, Shadow of the Colossus and most recently The Last Guardian, have been shut down for well over a decade at this point. While The Last Guardian came out after their closure, that was developed by Fumito Ueda's independent team Gen Design, who are currently working on a new unannounced game. Whether this will be exclusive to Sony is unknown at this stage, but it does leave these classics out in the wilderness a bit. At least you can still play The Last Guardian and Shadow of the Colossus on your PS5, the latter via a shiny new remake. But poor old Ico remains lost in the past at this point. Here's hoping we see a remake of that gem too at some point. Oh, and we also get a glimpse of Wonder in the Astro Bot trailer, so he's still on Sony's radar at least. SingStar, once one of the most prolific of Sony franchises and alongside Guitar Hero and Rock Band, the peak of the social music game era, is now almost certainly dead. It has been 7 years since we last saw a game in the series with the release of SingStar Celebration, and what's worse, the iconic team behind the franchise, London Studio, was brutally shut down earlier this year in widespread layoffs. So the future of this once popular singing series is looking pretty bleak.
Sly Cooper, another Sucker Punch Studio franchise, has sadly been AWOL since 2013's Thieves in Time. And what's worse is, again like Resistance and Killzone, you can't play any of the series on modern consoles. So if you want to play a Sly Cooper game in 2024, you'll need to dig out your PS3 and get the Sly Cooper collection. In lieu of no new game in the series, it's a real shame that Sony have effectively locked a fair few of their PS3 era franchises in the past. In his heyday, Sly was one of Sony's most popular mascots alongside Ratchet and Clank and Jak and Daxter, but sadly Sly has been discarded like an old toy. Another Sony franchise locked in the past is SOCOM US Navy SEALs, the third-person tactical shooter series that had 10 games released across the PS2, PS3 and PSP between 2002 and 2011. The last entry in the series, SOCOM 4, roughly coincided with the closure of the development studio behind the game, Zipper Interactive, who at the time they were shut down were working on another entry in the franchise. With it being so long since the release of the last game, I think it's pretty fair to say we've seen the last of SOCOM. Next up, we have another of Sony's current flagships, the Spider-Man series. Since Sony acquired the game rights to the web-slinger back in 2014, we've seen 2 numbered entries into the series, as well as a Miles Morales spin-off that launched alongside the PS5. And despite hacks that impacted developers Insomniac Games back in 2023 and revealed the studio's roadmap for the future, it's a pretty safe bet that we'll see a third game in the incredibly popular franchise, if not more. On a separate but related note, Insomniac are also working on a Wolverine game, which is set within the same continuity as their Spider-Man titles. So in a decade's time, we could be looking at a video gaming equivalent to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. From one of their most well-known titles to perhaps one of their least, with the PlayStation Move-centric franchise Sports Champions. The series is basically Sony's belated answer to the mammoth success of Wii Sports, but well, the franchise never really stuck the landing. There have been 2 games to date, with the last launching in 2012, both of which relied on the PlayStation Move peripheral. And unless Sony brings back a revival of that tech, I doubt we're ever seeing this mini franchise ever again. Speaking of PlayStation Move franchises, there's also Start the Party, which similar to Sports Champions only saw 2 game releases, the last of which also launched in 2012. And to be honest, neither game in the party game series really set the world alight, so let's just leave them in the past. One of Sony's most popular franchises from the PS1 era, Siphon Filter, has now become one of the company's long-lost series. We haven't seen a release in the spy shooter series since Logan's Shadow for the PSP in 2007, which is just criminal. The original trilogy are still held in extremely high regard, even if they might not have aged so well. But unlike other long-lost Sony franchises, you can actually play the majority of the Siphon Filter franchise on your PS5 right now, which is great. But whether this iconic series has any brand recognition anymore might count against it when Sony considers what to reboot next. Twisted Metal, Sony's vehicular combat game, is a very weird little franchise to pin down. The series has been around since 1995 and was undeniably at its peak during the PS1 era, but since then there have been a handful of Twisted Metal games on the PS2 and PS3, including a soft reboot of sorts that launched in 2012, which also happens to be the last time an original game in the series was released. The PS2 game Twisted Metal Black eventually found its way onto the PS4 via a port, but other than that the franchise has been kinda quiet. That is until a TV show with an all-star cast came the hell out of nowhere last year. Starring Anthony Mackie and Stephanie Beatrice, the show did so well that it has already been renewed for a second season. What this means for any future games is anyone's guess, but the brand is firing on all cylinders again, so why not greenlight a new game? Right, we're nearly done with this mammoth look at Sony's franchises, but we've still got a big one to go, Uncharted. Yep, Nathan Drake was effectively the poster boy for PlayStation for nearly a decade from 2007 to 2016, but he had his swan song in Uncharted 4: A Thief's End. That game wasn't the last we've seen of the franchise though. As a follow-up, The Lost Legacy, that starred rival treasure hunter Chloe Fraser and mercenary Nadine Ross, released in 2017. So there's clearly still scope for more adventures in the Uncharted franchise without Nathan Drake. Since then, we've seen the Legacy of Thieves collection launch in 2022, which bundled A Thief's End and Lost Legacy together into one compilation. And around the same time, we also had the Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg starring film adaptation, with a sequel supposedly in production. So there's still definitely gas in the tank for the adventure franchise.
The interactive horror game Until Dawn is one of Sony's IPs we'll be seeing again, albeit via a remake of the original 2015 game. The fact that we're getting a remake though might trigger more interest in the series, which has only had 2 releases to date, with the other being the PSVR title Rush of Blood. We'll just have to wait and see how the remake performs when it releases, as to whether this franchise will be given a new lease of life.
And we end this list with the legendary Vib Ribbon. Wait, what do you mean you've never heard of Vib Ribbon? The classic rhythm game has been knocking about since 1999 when the first game launched on the PS1. But to be fair, if you're an American watching this video, Vib Ribbon didn't release in the States until 2014, after the then Sony CEO Sean Layden name-dropped it at E3 2014 without realising that it never launched in the US. Anyway, the original was followed up by Mojib Ribbon and Vib Ripple, both of which never made it out of Japan. Maybe little Vibri the rabbit will finally get their spot in the limelight one day.
And that, my friends, is the current state of PlayStation's franchises. Please let me know if there are any others that I've missed in the comments section down below. And make sure to subscribe to GameSpot, as we've got a few other Sony related features to take a look at, such as a video on the best and worst features of PlayStation consoles and a look at all the upcoming PS5 exclusives. Thanks a lot for watching, I'll see you next time.
For multiple console life cycles, PlayStation has fostered a brand built on gritty anti-heroes, fantastical worlds at conflict with themselves, and a trope colloquially referred to as sad dads. I like most of those games and find the praise they receive in many cases to be well earned, but Astro Bot is a reminder of another side of the PlayStation DNA. Not only does it feel like a revitalization of an important part of the brand, but it also feels like a spotlight shifting to a character who's been lurking in the background, previously unable to see over the hulking Kratos, the war-ready Aloy, or the tortured Joel. Team Asobi's Astro Bot quickly, consistently, and joyously launches its titular character into the pantheon of all-time greats, both in its first-party family and genre, with a platformer whose incredible ambition is matched by its brilliant execution. Stranded in space following an attack from a googly-eyed alien, Astro's mission is to repair their ship and rescue all 300 pals scattered across 5 main clusters of planets, each composed of individual levels. Naturally, the story is not the focus here, and yet I was so immersed in the 15-hour game that I beat it in 2 long sittings. It may be 2024's most immersive game, and it achieves that without a line of dialogue. Instead, each level tells a story, clear as day, about where you ought to go next and what you should do there. There is both depth and breadth to most levels, and frequent checkpoints mean you'll rarely be punished for exploration or missing a jump. Levels take only 5 to 10 minutes in most cases, but are overflowing with personality. Robot animals climb trees along the periphery or jump out of the ocean far beneath the levitating world you explore. Everything constantly moves around you, imbuing every level with life beyond the scraps you'll engage with in the game's enemies. Numerous dazzling aesthetics in Astro Bot are somehow only used once or very little, like a casino level with bright multicolored lights and betting chips floating through the sky, or a level meant to look like a child-friendly haunted graveyard and nearby castle, which is among my favorites in the whole game, but again, somehow was featured just once. These assets surely take many human hours, and again, Astro Bot presents them with the confidence to wordlessly suggest, yeah, we know these rule, but look at what else we have for you, before the next level wipes the slate and starts anew with yet another never-before-seen aesthetic. I haven't seen a platformer marathon through so many varied, whimsical, and blatantly cool ideas like this before. My favorite aspect of the game is how it seems to read my mind. Every time I divert off of the main path in search of a secret or a reward, I would find one. Team Asobi understands its level design concepts so well that it can reliably predict where and when players will get sidetracked, and it ensures there's always something waiting for them there, like a surprise gift in the mail whose sender can't wait to learn it's arrived. Whenever I'd wonder if my intuition was leading me to something valuable, I'd find I was right. In tandem with expert level design are the game's diverse and exciting mechanics. At the start of nearly every level, Astro jumps into a suit or straps on a backpack of some kind that gives them an ability. In one level, it's spring-powered boxing gloves resembling cartoon frogs. In another, it's a robot dog that gives the bipedal bot a wall-smashing rocket boost. Or, in another, a time-freezing tool that allows Astro to scale otherwise impossibly fast-moving sections. Across the game's dozens of levels, you'll see many abilities like these, and in nearly every case, they are a resounding success. While some abilities are more fun than others, they nearly all work seamlessly. As Astro, you'll strap on the ability and intuitively understand it. You sense its limitations and use cases immediately. And though the game disposes of the abilities at an uncommon pace, many will resurface later in a new setting and be used to defeat the game's fun bosses, including a final boss and credit sequence that will surely go down as one of 2024's best video game moments. Even within a level, an ability is used to several different and creative ways, but always stemming from its singular mechanic featured in that level. It ramps up the platforming and combat sequences via an approachable but challenging incline and chains these little moments together in such a way that there's never a lull in any level. Whereas many platformers may drill down on a key feature or small set of features, Astro Bot displays confidence by often disposing of exciting new tools shortly after introducing them. It expresses iteration in cycles of 5 minutes each, rather than iterating on one idea for 5 or more hours, which I find both refreshing and bold. The only other game I've seen that's similarly willing to dispose of cool ideas like this is It Takes Two, and Astro Bot does it more often and with more enjoyable mechanics. The only ability that doesn't work as cleanly as others is the one used in an underwater level. Meant to mimic a dolphin-like dive ability, the controls used for this one never feel as intuitive as those for the other abilities. In this level, I found it unusually tricky, albeit not exactly difficult, to collect all of the secrets. A few of them demanded a deft diving ability the backpack is meant to offer, but it doesn't have the same accuracy of some of the other abilities in the game, which led me to whiff on some sections in a way that was unique to this level. It was manageable, but if any secret levels, which tend to be some of the game's hardest, also use this mechanic, I expect them to become some of the game's few frustrations. Each galaxy you arrive in houses several secrets to uncover in the overworld, and even levels themselves have hidden bonus stages. This game's secrets have secrets, with more hidden levels being revealed at a steady clip whenever you inch closer to polishing off each galaxy's to-do list. The best of those secrets are the hidden bots themselves. There are 300 in total, though you only need 200 to face the final boss. And over half of them are dressed up as iconic characters from video game history. Many of them are first-party heroes like Ellie and a Gran Turismo racer, but many others are cameos of characters from series closely tied to PlayStation's past, such as Tomb Raider, Persona, or even classic and contemporary indies like Journey, Stray, and Humanity. Each bot you find returns to the mostly safe zone, the crash site, which acts like a hub world you can explore and decorate. Here the game carries forward the same PlayStation museum vibe seen in Astro's Playroom, albeit to a lesser extent. You won't explore past PlayStation consoles, but the mothership you're trying to repair is a giant PS5, and the spaceship you use to explore the overworld is a DualSense controller with wings. It feels a bit like the meme of Obama awarding Obama a medal, but it's not distracting, so ultimately, it's fine. Spending coins in the game's shop unlocks dioramas, ship paints, and costumes for Astro. The dioramas are especially fun as they turn all your collected bots into animated statues, like one that shows Nathan Drake playing a game called Dude Raider on his couch. All of the 169 cameo bots fill in the would-be barren desert sands like a virtual shelf of Funko Pops. Finding each of these characters is a constant highlight of Astro Bot. Some are placed right in front of you, but most require the aforementioned curiosity to pull you off the beaten path in search of the game's bountiful secrets. One of the best mechanics, which I very much hope becomes standard in the genre moving forward, is a robot bird companion who can join you in any level you decide to replay. The bird pings for collectibles and leads you right to the remaining bots, secret void levels, and puzzle pieces that you haven't found yet. This makes playing the game to 100% completion a joy and never a grind. I never cared about PlayStation trophies before, but I expect to unlock all of them for Astro Bot, if only incidentally because I want to see and do everything the game offers. Beyond the underwater level that doesn't shine the way the others do, my only other frustrations with Astro Bot came in the form of some of the game's hardest levels, which will likely be too difficult for younger or less experienced players. Normally these levels are as brief as 30 seconds, but they require perfection and give the game a taste of trial and error it otherwise consciously rejects. I understand the game is split into tiers, allowing most anyone to be able to beat the base game before the diehards go the extra mile. But since several cameo characters are locked behind these ultra hard mini levels, it's a bit of a letdown that some of the game's younger fans may likely never find all of the must-have bots to bring back to the hub world. In this way, Astro Bot gates a small but not insignificant portion of its best material behind a skill check that some of its audience won't pass. The game also crashed on me twice, both times erasing more progress than I'd have expected since I assumed it autosaved after each level, but I'd lost about 3 or 4 levels of progress in both instances. However, I admit these crashes came at the end of my long 11-hour session with the game on my first day with it, so maybe it was an issue Team Asobi will address. Still, the hard crash backpedaling on my save data was strange, and somewhat soured what was a marathon of smiles for about 10 hours of that day. The simply titled Astro Bot is meant to be the cute robot's first significant foray into video games, following a 2018 VR exclusive that earned praise but was stuck in its headset-only bubble, and a 2020 pack-in tech demo that hinted at more to come. The beauty of the game, as suggested by its title, is that even players returning for their third Astro adventure will find hours upon hours of new adventures, collectively and magnificently presented as a parade of joyous sights, sounds, and adventures. This is a grand reopening for Astro Bot, and it surely marks the start of what is destined to be a beloved new series that is shooting for the moon.
Hi everyone, I'm Nicolas Doucet, the studio head at Team Asobi. We couldn't be happier with the reception to Astro Bot and to see how much joy Astro is bringing to homes all around the world. On behalf of Team Asobi, thank you so much. Now, we still have a few surprises up our sleeves. Today's trailer was a sneak peek at the DLC we'll release later this year at no additional cost. We'll have more to share soon. But for now, let's enjoy the state of play.
Listen to me, burnt one. If you're intending to walk the midnight walk, you better be sure to keep your spark safe and burning.
While I was in the black, I had a dream. There was a monster in the woods.
And on you go, like a moth into the burning light.
Thank you.
Who took the sun away? Little soul, you charming little wanderer, where are you off to now?
And so it was that the burnt one and a small flame took a wander down the midnight walk.
I don't remember when it happened, but I remember how I felt. Father told us to hide when they came to our house. Then they took him away. Mother said I couldn't play outside anymore. Everyone had fled. She said the country was sick, but we would be okay. Mother always said monsters didn't exist. I thought they lived under my bed. We were both wrong. They live inside our heads.
My story is a tale of rules rewritten by nuclear fire.
Oh, hey, Serdar!
Have you seen Yana?
Something happened.
She's in no state to be wandering out in the metro alone. I need to go after her. Their bodies arranged in some sort of ritual. Please, just let Yana be all right. What was that? I keep hearing other voices on the radio.
You said there were people there.
Did you not hear any of that? Yana, is that you?
The worm.
I'm seeing things. Hearing things. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Sometimes we need to become the thing we fear. To prevent something worse.
truth about the night sky tragedy. Long ago, you humans slaughtered each other until the whole world lay in ruins. And yet, you have been granted another chance in Auroria. It must be the will of your beloved Mother Goddess. However, I still have no trust in your kind. Prove yourself. If you survive this trial, perhaps you might become one of us.
Thanks to Pocket Pair for that new look at Pal World, an incredible open-world survival game that's launching today on the PlayStation 5 console. We have a few more games with breaking news today, starting with the return of two beloved RPGs from the original PlayStation.
Your dreams, magical thoughts, all things are real unless you dream they're not. In your dreams, love is the plot. Carried on wings of hope.
Lunar Remastered Collection brings together Lunar the Silver Star Story Complete and Lunar 2 Eternal Blue Complete with updated visuals, widescreen mode, and more.
Instantly we see it, the times are growing, be it when everything is pinned on a hold.
Lunar Remastered Collection comes to PS5 and PS4 in spring 2025. Two updates on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. First, the Radical Reptiles DLC, which adds Mondo Gecko and Mona Lisa as playable characters. And for no extra cost, a remixed in-game soundtrack featuring some amazing guest composers. Both of these updates arrive later today. And yes, you heard right. Keanu Reeves is joining Sonic X Shadow Generations as part of the upcoming Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie pack. This update is inspired by scenes from the Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie and arrives December 12th. The Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie pack is included in the Digital Deluxe Edition, which lets you play the game 3 days ahead of its October 25th release date.
Hello, State of Play. I'm Sakaguchi, プロデューサー of Fantasy and Neo Dimension。手作りのジオラマを使ったファンタジアンネオディメンジョン、150も作りました。そしてランダムエンカウントを貯めていっぺんに戦ったり、スキルの起動を操作したりと単式バトルにも新要素を盛り込んでいます。音楽はファイナルファンタジーシリーズで共に歩んできた植松さんです。プレイステーション5にて2024年12月5日発売、どうか皆さんにプレイしていただけたらと、願っています。
We're just over a month away from the release of Dragon Age: The Veilguard. Let's check in with BioWare and Electronic Arts for an extended look at a climactic battle.
We've gotten word from the Wardens.
Have they found Gillenane?
Not yet, but they found something else worth killing. One of her blighted dragons.
Rook, you made it. Good.
Wouldn't miss it. We have unfinished business with that dragon.
We've tracked it to a ruined tower nearby.
That lair is a death trap.
We need to lure her out to have any chance. So we challenge her, draw the dragon out into the open, then attack. Just you and me now.
Everyone, get ready!
Wardens! Ready ballistas! Wait for it.
Come on. Come on.
Hit the wings! Force her to land! Second detachment! Flank on the walls! Let's go!
The attack! Bring that first one down!
Vaughn! Gillenane.
Consume their flesh! Shatter their bones! Your battle is already lost!
This isn't the Bureau's first time in Bright Falls. The FBC's research department set up a facility. The Lake House. If I had any clue what was waiting for us in there, I would have just kept on driving.
Give up the firearm!
Few know the truth. I stood with Cain and my brethren until I had the honor of surpassing my lord. For my transgression, I earned a new kind of reward. Agony.
The fate of this world was preordained in an instant.
What madness is this?
Am I so changed?
I was not prepared for what lay beyond this threshold.
The future has always been written.
Don't fight it, Raziel.
Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver 1 and 2 Remastered arrives December 10th, celebrating the 25th anniversary of the first game's release.
You sure we can't just do the same?
Games from the original PlayStation era also inspired Fear the Spotlight from Blumhouse Games. It brings atmospheric polygonal scares to PS5 and PS4 on October 22nd.
Just go home, Viv. I'm happy here. So happy.
At last, we've returned to our ancestral land, Agasba.
Build villages and nurture vast ecosystems in Towers of Agasba. This colorful world includes unique creatures, a peculiar cast of characters, and also allows you to invite other players to visit your island. Towers of Agasba launches into early access this November. Up next, Epic Games brings a split-screen mode to LEGO Fortnite this October. This feature enables friends and family to explore the world and build villages together while playing on the same PS5 or PS4. And in other Fortnite news, the new Fortnite Limited Edition DualSense wireless controller arrives later this year, with pre-orders starting October 3rd. Visit PlayStation blog for more details. Next, it's 1 versus 1,000 in Dynasty Warriors Origins, and Koei Tecmo Games is ready to share the release date. Let's take a look.
Guardian of Peace, you have crossed paths with men who may one day bring about order. Until then, you must adapt to the chaos and find a way to survive. So choose your path wisely. Go forth and learn what it means to be a hero.
You claim to strive for justice, but have no way to achieve it. Tearing down the system without providing an alternative is mere wanton destruction. The die has been cast. All that remains is to see this through.
Still hoping that I imagined the whole thing. It's burned into my mind.
So, Captain, what's your team been getting up to?
The Guild gave special assignments to some of the other units from the expedition, mine included.
This forest is amazing.
My fur isn't built for this kind of weather. That's causing the water currents to surge too.
This is its territory, and we're intruders.
Why don't they just put the meat down? Leave this to me! Heels inbound!
That's it. The White Wraith. It's real!
Is that what we're after? The White Wraith.
Down there. Someone's in trouble.
It seems we must do a more thorough investigation.
What is that thing? An extinct species?
You're a hunter. You've got a weapon, and you do nothing? Give it to me! And I'll...
皆さんこんにちは。モンスターハンターワイルズプロデューサーの辻本です。本作の発売日が2025年2月28日世界同日発売に決定いたしました。本日より順次予約を開始しますので、ぜひご予約いただければと思います。プレイステーションストアでご予約いただいた方限定の特典として、プレイステーション5でご覧いただけるデジタルミニアートブックをご用意します。9月26日の23時からは TGS2024 カプコンオンラインプログラムを放送いたします。それでは引き続きモンスターハンターワイルズの情報にご注目ください。またお会いしましょう。
Look at those chompers! Okay, trail spots aren't cheap, so let's get started. A hunter with a mysterious past and her, very heroic friends are all that stands in the way of an unspeakable evil. Join them as they explore, hunt, collect wacky outfits, and decorate their village.
Nailed it. This is awesome. But wait, there's more. With the digital deluxe edition, you get this exciting blue roller thing. And snazzy costumes, like the Shadow Stalwart outfit. And this, I don't know what that is. That or that. Or why they're climbing in that cannon. But look how much fun they're having. Come and join the party in Mother's Heart. Phew, got it all in.
No, you didn't.
Oh, I forgot to mention the pre-order.
Hi everyone, I'm Kristen Zatani. We are so excited for everyone to get their hands on LEGO Horizon Adventures when it launches on November 14th. And Aloy has more good news on the horizon. Aloy's original adventure, Horizon Zero Dawn, is being remastered for PS5 and PC by Guerrilla and Nixes. Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered includes more than 10 hours of re-recorded conversation mocap and countless graphical improvements that bring the game to the same visual fidelity as Horizon Forbidden West. This new version of Horizon Zero Dawn will arrive October 31st, and anyone who owns the original PS4 version of the game will be able to upgrade to the new PS5 version for $9.99. Visit PlayStation Blog for more details and watch the full trailer to see all the enhancements to Aloy's epic quest. New content is on the way to the action-packed world of Stellar Blade. A new photo mode lets players set up the perfect picture with your choice of poses, expressions, and filters. And Stellar Blade's original soundtrack, featuring over 180 songs from the game, is available on select streaming services starting today. But that's not all. Sci-fi worlds collide in the Stellar Blade and Nier Automata collaboration, coming to Stellar Blade later this year. Now let's talk about what's ahead for PlayStation Plus. First, your monthly games for October are WWE 2K24, Dead Space, and Doki Doki Literature Club Plus. These will be available to all PlayStation Plus members starting October 1st. Meanwhile, our library of PlayStation classics continues to grow, with 2 more fan favorites from the original PlayStation arriving later this year: Blood Omen Legacy of Kain and Capcom's Dino Crisis. Naughty Dog fans know September 26th is The Last of Us Day, and we're celebrating by adding the critically acclaimed PS5 hit The Last of Us Part 1 to the PlayStation Plus game catalog this Thursday.
Hi everyone, I'm Mark Cerny. We recently revealed the newest addition to the PlayStation 5 family, PS5 Pro, alongside several games showcasing the superior frame rates and improved graphics that the new console makes possible. With PS5 Pro, developers have access to 3 key improvements: an upgraded GPU, advanced ray tracing, and AI-driven upscaling that combine to bring developers closer to realizing their unique vision. We're excited for players to get their hands on PlayStation 5 Pro when it launches this November. But in the meantime, here's a look at some of the games that are being enhanced for the new console, including a few titles that we're revealing for the very first time today.
This is the time of our lives. This is the time of our lives. This is the time of our lives.
We are beyond the edge of Japan. People come north to disappear. But you are hunting. And now, every Ronin here is after you. Still think you're the hunter?
PlayStation